Welcome to Petrol Lounge. Presenting the 2007 Aston Martin V8 Vantage. I want to give a quick shout out to the owner of this car for letting us do this quick little shoot with his car. This is his baby. It is a wonderful car. I can't wait to show it all off to you. And we're just really thankful that not only do we get to take care of it, but we're also afforded this opportunity. And I also can't wait to share this with you just because this is a car a lot of people have been sleeping on, and it's truly like a buy it now kind of car. And we'll just go ahead and start this off. I'm going to open up the hood and we're going to go right inside and just start diving into this car deep. I'll show you what makes it truly special. Looking under the hood of the Aston Martin here, you start to get a sense of why this car is special. There's a lot of aluminum construction here. You're looking at a 4.3 liter V8, which at the time was a reasonable size. It makes about 380 horsepower. What is special about it is it's situated midship on the front. So the whole entire engine is behind the center line of the front wheels. It's right along here. So this is technically a mid-engine car. We did say this makes about 380 horsepower. 0 to 60 time was about 4.9 seconds, which was pretty quick for the time period the car was built. It's, you know, kind of average today, but the car feels faster than it is. And with all the aluminum in the car, it only weighs about 3,000 pounds. So you end up with a car that's very responsive, and the weight balance on this, because the transmission is in the rear, is a 49% up front, 51% in the rear. So your handling dynamics are really amazing. And it's just a delight to drive. It's a great engine. It sounds fantastic. There's very little use of plastic. Everything that you see in the car, if it looks like metal, it's going to be metal. If it looks like leather, it's going to be leather. There's no kind of hidden things in play. And just looking at this, the way even these pieces are made and machined, you see these nice cut lines through here. The windshield wiper mechanism up here is really complex, and in and of itself is just kind of a work of art when you start looking at it. But then you get to things like this piece up front, and you know, it's got a little badge that says hand built in England, and it has the guy's name that did the final inspection. But what's really crazy is in every other car I've ever seen, this is a plastic piece of material, but when you come up and touch it, you'll notice this is metal. And like I said, this is throughout the whole car. Everything that you look at that you think, oh, that might be plastic masquerading as something else. No, it's metal. It's something substantial, and it always feels good to your touch, in your hands. It's just really incredible. So all of these V8 Vantages, they have a dry sump system on them. And the oil canister is here. And the dipstick, it sounds dumb to talk about how special this dipstick is, but it just speaks to the car. And it's this piece of aluminum here, and you have to unscrew it, and it's got just a nice weight and feel to it. I can't really get that across on camera, but it just feels like this fine piece of machinery. And then you pull it out, and it has real weight to it. And the dipstick is this solid piece of metal. I can't even really bend it. It's really easy to read, and you know, just those kind of feels and those touches when you're in the car and you screw this down and it just feels amazing. And the price on these cars has just fallen through the floor. You can find these cars all day long for $35,000, $40,000 in this condition, and they're worth just so much more when you really come and appreciate one and drive it. I don't know why they're so cheap. So looking at the front end here, this is really classic Aston Martin design. They started really refining the look here of what Aston Martin was going to look like, not just then, but now. It's got this really unified look across the whole entire line, and that's part of what, again, makes this car really special and a great buy. Is I've owned this car, not this exact one, but I have owned one of these before, and I can tell you, you drive this around and people assume that you're driving around a $250,000 car. And it's because to everyone else's eyes, they really can't tell which Aston Martin they're looking at. They just see an Aston Martin. It's very much like how Porsche does their cars, but even more so. The people look at this and they always ask, well, which one am I looking at? Is this the Vanquish? Is it the Vantage? And even if they say Vantage or Vanquish, they don't know which one is which. So to them, this is the top of the line, fast supercar that Aston Martin made. It's not, but it looks like it to everyone. And it's just got a really classic, beautiful style that has aged very well. This is a 2007 car. This car originally came out in 05 as an 06 model. So we're talking about a design that's going on 17 years old now. And it still looks fresh. It doesn't quite look new, but it looks modern. It didn't age really. It never went through an awkward stage. And that's really amazing. This design is just gorgeous all the way through. As we come down the side here, you've got these really beautiful ProDrive wheels that it's an unusual 7-spoke design. A lot of times you'll see a 6-spoke or a 5-spoke. 7-spoke is kind of unusual. It looks really beautiful here. It's got nice Brembo brakes on it. Those came standard on this car. It's not like you could get an upgraded brake package or anything else. This is what you got. And in 07, not every performance car came with Brembos. This was, I don't want to say it was unique, but definitely just one of those higher end touches that Aston is going to do. And you come back, and Aston was one of the first to start doing this kind of cutout in the front fender. You see it a lot nowadays. It's getting, I don't want to say it's getting played out, but people are starting to transition away from it again. But they were the first ones. And again, I'm going to highlight just the materials. You look at this, it's chrome. And your first thought is, surely this isn't metal. But again, this is a really substantial piece of metal here. It's solid in a way that is hard to express on camera, but it feels like it's just one solid piece. I'm sure it's got a hollow inside, but it is thick, it is beefy. You touch it and you go, wow, that's some quality engineering. And it even continues up here on this arm for the rearview mirror. This is metal that supports all this here. And when you touch it, it's cold to the touch. You realize, oh wow, they really spent extra money and extra effort just to make this part. And you think about that and you go, well, where else did they spend the extra money? And you're going to see it all through this car, just every time you touch it. You've got this nice Coke bottle shape to the car that looks the part of not just being a gentleman's elegant car, but being the kind of car that you're like, oh, this is fast. This car was meant to perform. And really and truly, that's what the Vantage is. The Vantage is your sports car of the Aston Martin line. The Vanquish is the supercar, but really, I can tell you, it's not as fast, but I would tell you this is a more exciting, fun car to drive than the Vanquish. Its limits are a little lower, they're a little more accessible, the car is better balanced, and it just feels like the kind of lightweight, fun car that you can toss around, even though, I mean, it's an Aston Martin, and it's a special piece, work of art kind of car. When you get in it and drive it, you get that sense of, no, this is a sports car, and it wants to be driven in a sporting way. It's truly magical when you get behind the wheel. Coming around to the back end back here, this is, again, just simple, elegant design. There's nothing that really calls my attention to it where I can go, oh my God, this is amazing and incredible. But like the rest of the car, it's just clean, understated, good design, which is surprisingly hard to do. You don't see it very often, particularly on the rear end, which is often an afterthought. This is just a good looking car. And this one is debadged. Most of the V8 Vantages I see are debadged, so you don't see the V8 emblems anywhere on them. You don't see Vantage. The debadging results in a cleaner rear end, but I can tell you from experience, there are times where on the freeway, people will come up on this car and they don't know what it is. They want to find out what it is. And the Aston Martin badge is actually relatively small, especially the print. And they will crawl right up on your bumper trying to figure out what you're driving. A little nerve-wracking at times, honestly. And one thing I do like about this car is it has a nice little external button back here so you can open the trunk without having to go inside the car. And again, it's just this little tiny chrome button. It doesn't even really look like a button. You kind of have to know what it is, but you press this, and again, this is another surprise when you go inside the trunk. This car just has a massive trunk to it. It's I can't state how usable this car is. I can't state it enough. I put so much in the back of mine when I owned it. I used to load it up with all my scuba gear. We're talking, 2-3 tanks worth of air, my BCD, all the stuff, and I would still have plenty of room back here. And it wasn't hard to fit things in. It's got a nice big hole to drop things in, and it's deep and it's big, and anything you want will fit back here. And it's even got an extra little parcel shelf up here that goes pretty far. They didn't just design this car to look nice and be, driven well. They designed it to be a daily driver, to use it, and you just don't see that much on this level of automobile. A lot of times cars in this price point, they tend to be really specialized things, like, they are a sports car and they don't care if you can get your carry-on luggage in it, because you're never going to carry your carry-on luggage. But I am the kind of guy that if I buy this car, I'm going to drive it every day. I really appreciate this kind of stuff. Because this is a British car, hidden up underneath this parcel tray is actually a really nice Aston Martin umbrella. And again, I'm going to tell you, feeling this umbrella, it does not feel like any other umbrella that you have ever felt. We have Rolls Royces in here that have the umbrellas and the doors. They don't feel this nice. They're not this big. This is a big umbrella. It's made of a fabric cloth that it's weighty. It has a good feel. The handle is metal and it's heavy and it's all engraved. It says Aston Martin on it. It's just a wonderful piece. If you told me this umbrella costs 125 or 150 bucks, I would absolutely believe it. I don't know. I haven't looked it up. I still have mine from my car. I fear what it would cost me to replace it if I had to. And now that we're talking about the interior, let's go ahead and go inside. And I can't wait to show you all the cool stuff up front, because this is where you're going to spend most of your time. And Aston Martin really thought about that. This is, well, you'll see. So as we get into the car, when you sit down, there's this smell in here of just really fine leather, and I can't even begin to describe it to you. It's a very distinct Aston Martin smell, and it, for lack of a better word, it just smells rich. This piece here, this center piece, this is metal. It goes all the way up through here. This is not metal or leather, but it is wood. It's a lacquered covered wood. This doesn't have the smoker package, but if you did, when you flip this up, the ashtray that was in here was a lead crystal ashtray. The door sills down here, these are metal. It's leather, it's leather. The headliner, everything through here is Alcantara. Even these knobs for the AC, when you first touch them, you're struck by, they're kind of heavy. They have a lot of inertia when you go to move them, and they're also a little cold to the touch. And it's because these are aluminum. It just carries all through the car. Even the vents here, when you go to move these vents in the summertime, because you've been using the AC, they're very, very cold because they're metal. When you move them in the wintertime, they're kind of warm to the touch. And it's those kind of touch points that make you think, whoa, this car is different, and it feels like quality. And even when I go to shut the door here, you can't see it, and it's impossible to see. But where I have my hand back here, there's a little tiny piece of Alcantara, and it just feels really nice to touch that, to pull the door shut. If you use inferior materials on the touch points that people touch all the time, whether it's the door handle or it's the steering wheel or it's the shift knob, those are the kind of things that subconsciously make people think, oh, this car's a little cheap. You didn't really spend a lot of time and money on this particular item. And everything that you touch in this car repeats subconsciously to you, no, we spent real money on this car. We put quality materials into this car. We spent time and cared about the construction of this car. And I can tell you, I owned one of these for 3 years. And even at year 3, every single time I got in it, and I daily drove it for a long time, it still made me feel like $1 million. This is probably one of those cars I'm always going to regret that I sold. Looking in this interior, looking out over the hood, looking at the instrument panel, this is a really special instrument panel. It's really beautiful. It's some of the most beautiful gauges I have seen in a car. They look more like watch instruments, and they're really unique in that the speedometer goes clockwise as a normal speedometer would go, but your tachometer actually sweeps in the opposite direction. Even up here on the sun visor, and granted they're a little small, but the sun visor is covered in Alcantara. It's got nice weight to it, and even here where it's connected to the roof, it's this piece of aluminum. Again, as we go into the center console through here, I do want to point out this is a manual transmission car. The initial first years of this car only came with a manual transmission, and it is a wonderful shifting transmission. It feels great, and you had that for the majority of the cars, especially in the first line of the V8 Vantage. Now, later in the lineup, this car did come with a sport shift option, which was a manual automatic transmission. It's okay, but really the glory is in these manual transmission cars. And, you know, just coming back here, now the center console is a little bit of an afterthought, I will admit. There's no storage in here, even though it looks like there should be. And it has space technically for a couple of drinks, but you're going to be putting Red Bull cans in here, and that's about it. And they're really awkwardly placed. This part is, yeah, I wish it was better. The rest of the car, though, again, I come back here. This is a really nice parcel shelf back here. You can put a lot of extra storage. And even the stuff back here that I'm touching, again, it's all leather. These pieces are metal. There's nothing in here that's not metal or leather. And I'm reminded as I'm looking back here now too, there's a nice big sub up underneath this carpet panel here. This has one of the best sound systems I've heard in any car, period. And it doesn't have a name on it like Nakamichi or Pioneer or Alpine or, you know, anything else. It's just Aston Martin's stuff. Actually, that's a little bit of a cheat. The amplifier in here is an Alpine amplifier. They did go to high-end shops, but it doesn't carry a name. And it's really well balanced. I didn't feel like I needed to do anything other than just add a way to get my iPhone to communicate with the stereo and play music through the stereo. Otherwise, I didn't want to touch it. I didn't want to replace the speakers, the amplifiers, nothing. It's great out of the box, and that is just not very common. Thanks for spending time with us today and spending time with the Aston Martin V8 Vantage. Be sure to hit like and subscribe below. We've got a lot of great content coming your way. You can see some of it just sitting around back here in this building. And we'll catch you on the next one.